Hello and welcome to my SAC105 presentation. I will present a critical analysis of the French contrast method and its ability to improve vertical jumpability in elite field sport athletes. I think a natural way to start the presentation is with a short introduction to the French contrast method. The method was originally developed by the French track and field coach Charles Comedy with the intention of improving vertical jumpability in his track and field athletes. Then in the book Triphasic Training from 2012, Carl Dietz and Ben Peterson subsequently tweaked the training method in order to make it more appropriate for field sport athletes. This modification entailed a greater focus on building anaerobic capacity. It entailed increasing exercise selections to include movements in multiple planes, and it entailed the integration of the French contrast method into the triphasic training system. The French contrast method is made up of the execution of 4 exercises performed one after one another, with relatively short rest interval between exercises and a little longer rest intervals after each round of exercises. So the first exercise is a heavy compound exercise. Then there is a plyometric body weight exercise. There is a weighted jump exercise, and there is an assisted jump exercise. And all of these exercises are performed for 3 to 5 repetitions with 20 to 30 seconds of rest between exercises and 4 to 5 minutes of rest after the performance of each round of the exercises. And normally 3 to 4 rounds are performed. So looking at how the execution of these exercises and the French contrast method in general could improve vertical jump ability, the main mechanism that has been proposed by Dietz and Peterson is related to the adaptations seen from using different loading modalities. So by making sure that an exercise program targets many different loading modalities, or that it serves the load velocity curve, as it has been termed, Dietz and Peterson argues that the potential for improving vertical jumpability is maximized. So as a consequence, I will try to analyze how the practice of surfing the load velocity curve affects training adaptations, and how these adaptations influences vertical jumpability. But before I do that, I think it is important to describe the factors modulating vertical jump performance, so that these factors can act as a framework for the analysis. And vertical jump performance is determined by a complex interaction among several factors, including neural, morphological, physiological, and structural mechanisms. So if we start by looking at the neural factors, these relates to the ability to produce force. In very simple terms, jump height is determined by the relative vertical impulse, so enhancement of neural drive should potentially increase jump height by improvements in peak force and or improvements in rate of force development. In terms of morphological factors, muscle architecture describes the fascicle length of the muscle, the pennation angle of the muscle, and the volume of the muscle. And of those, long fascicle length has been associated with higher vertical jump. And this is easy to explain by the fact that increases in fascicle length subsequently increases contraction velocity of the muscles. In terms of fiber types, high percentage of fast twitch fibers is related to higher vertical jumps, as these fibers and their belonging motor neurons are responsible for producing high force and high velocity movements. If we look at the physiological factors, these relate closely to the function of the stretch shortening cycle, both in terms of proficiency when utilizing the buildup and release of elastic energy, and the sensitivity of the muscle spindles in order to take advantage of the stretch reflex. And lastly, there is the structural factors, which concerns the muscle, tendon, and joint stiffness. When we talk vertical jump performance, compliant tendons with the ability to elongate and stiff muscles seems to be optimal. And this is because that when tendons elongate to a greater extent during a vertical jump, the muscle needs to be very stiff to prevent it from elongating too. And if this is accomplished, the more elastic energy stored during the counter movement jump is then subsequently released during the jumping phase, leading to a higher vertical jump. And now that I have gone through the factors modulating vertical jump performance, we can return to the French contrast method and see how these factors might be improved by following this training method. So if we start with the use of heavy compound exercises, these has been shown to increase neural drive and consequently both rate of force development and maximal force expression capacity. This should lead to a positive adaptations in terms of increasing vertical jump ability. The adaptations in regards to muscle architecture and fiber type is more ambivalent. So heavy strength training increases pennation angle and muscle volume, which isn't strongly correlated with jump height, but on the other hand, several studies indicate that supramaximal eccentric exercises increases fascicle length. So there's some potential for improvements in vertical jump height there. In terms of fiber type composition, heavy strength training could increase conversion of very explosive fast twitch type 2X fibers to more aerobically dominant type 2A fibers, and this could potentially decrease explosiveness. Looking at the physiological and structural factors, heavy strength training could have a negative impact here, as this training modality has been shown to increase tendon stiffness. So when a tendon is stiff, it is harder to stretch, and the consequence could be less utilization of elastic energy during the stretch shortening cycle. We can then look at weighted jumps, and here the high velocity of execution stimulates the firing frequency component of the neural drive, as this is the most effective neural strategy to produce high force at high speeds. In terms of morphological adaptations, weighted jump training doesn't seem to show the same amount of conversion from type 2X to type 2A fibers compared to heavy strength training. Similarly, high velocity strength training with fast contraction velocities has been shown to increase fascicle length without altering pennation angle or muscle volume, which should also increase vertical jump performance. We then move on to plyometric training, and unsurprisingly, this training modality improves many of the factors that modulates vertical jump performance. Plyometric training has been shown to improve neural drive, although to a lesser extent or to a lesser degree than heavy strength training. The physiological and structural factors is, however, where the loading modality creates the most unique adaptations compared to the rest of the modalities. Plyometric training has been shown to increase tendon compliance, leading to better utilization of elastic energy in the stretch shortening cycle. This process essentially decreases the stiffness of the tendon, creating better conditions for the tendon to elongate while the muscles operates at very slow contraction speeds. As the musculature is dependent on the force-velocity relationship, slower contraction equals higher force and the potential for better vertical jump performance. And lastly, we are looking at the effects of assisted jump training, and there hasn't been any research on the effect of assisted jump training on neural drive. However, the training modality should increase fascicle lengths, as the reduction of body weight creates very fast contraction velocities in the musculature. And like plyometric training, assisted jumping also increases compliance of the tendon, leading to the same adaptations as described before. So all in all, there's no doubt that, or there's no question that the combination of these exercises seen in the French contrast method provides a powerful stimulus for enhancement of vertical jump performance. That is pretty straightforward to deduct from the analysis of the adaptations from the different loading modality used when following this method. The exercises improve different capacities that are important in vertical jump performance, and the execution of this particular group of exercises on a regular basis should lead to improvements in vertical jump performance, even in elite athletes. However, the training method also has some significant limitations. And firstly, this is the fact that the French contrast method represents a generic training system where each loading modality receives the same allocation in the program. As different athletes has distinct neural, morphological, structural, and physiological capacities, a generic program with identical exercises isn't necessarily the optimal way to improve vertical jump performance. As athletes approaches high training ages, the demands for specificity simultaneously increases. So in order to improve vertical jump performance in elite field sport athletes, more individualization is probably warranted. And secondly, another potential limitation is the very short rest interval between exercises. As you might recall, this was only 20 to 30 seconds. And research into complex training, which describes the performance of a heavy compound exercise followed by an explosive exercise, clearly shows that rest time between exercises is an essential determinant of the effectiveness of the training modality. So Dietz and Peterson's objective to improve anaerobic capacity with the French contrast method could actually decrease the improvements in vertical jump ability seen after performing the program. So in conclusion, the French contrast method offers a time-efficient framework that is very easy for the strength and conditioning coach to execute. It undoubtedly enhances vertical jump performance while simultaneously improving the athlete's ability to withstand the buildup of fatigue during prolonged execution of explosive movements. However, looking at the individual athlete and analyzing his strength and his weaknesses in each of the factors modulating jump performance could be a more advantageous strategy to use when trying to improve vertical jump performance in elite field sport athletes. In this way, athletes with highly developed capacities in structural or physiological factors could target the neural side of vertical jump performance with heavy strength exercises and vice versa. This is especially important when athletes approaches elite levels, as highly specific training modalities are required to increase performance. Additionally, the emphasis on improving anaerobic capacity with very short rest intervals between exercises most likely impairs optimal adaptations in explosive movements. Consequently, the rest intervals should be prolonged between exercises to allow for complete restoration of creatine phosphate stores if the training methods should be optimized in terms of improvements in vertical jump ability. Thank you very much for listening.